Welcome to Dr. Crystal's podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. I am your host, Dr. Crystal, a doctor of East Asian medicine and a holistic transformational coach. Here we will shine light on wisdom keepers, paradigm shifters who inspire us to live thriving, joyful lives. Let's be inspired. Although I am a doctor of East Asian medicine, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. It does not replace professional medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for guidance on your personal health needs. Welcome to the Dr. Crystal podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. And today I am so delighted to introduce you to my dear beloved friend, Jennifer Welder, who is multidimensional, multi-talented, and has helped me in so many ways. She is an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a life coach, feng shui consultant. She even made me this beautiful medicine necklace. So I'm so delighted to have you here, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I always love seeing your beautiful face and connecting with you. And yeah, just so inspired by you.
You are such an earth angel to me, so I'm just delighted to share your sacred story. So to start, can you share with us what sacred means to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I feel like when I think about sacred, I see like a faceted gem and how each part of that gem that makes the light reflect and shine is one side of it, right? So I feel like sacred can't really be fully named or fully seen. Um, but one way that I like to talk about it recently, because it's always changing, is just how everything is sacred, right?
Mm.
And it's kind of, I think about how it's the intention you bring to the experience that makes it almost like open up the portal. If you think about the multi-dimensionality, like you mentioned, of things, um, it's like opening up the portal to something else, right? So like the mystery, like who really knows what sacred really is?
Right?
I think it's a feeling, right? A feeling in our body or those moments that we experience that feel like miracles that we can't explain.
Mm.
But then I also think science is sacred and kind of the things that we can observe and nature, like all of that actually is a miracle too. And I think about Saint Ignatius and how he really, like, one of his deep spiritual practices was seeing that everything was sacred, the ordinary, the chair, the tree, the lamp, like everything has an essence of sacred in it. And I think how we get to that essence is really just with our intention. Like if I were to say silence, if you just hear the word silence, I think for a lot of people it might even feel a little scary, right? Silence. Or it might feel a little boring. But if you bring in the word sacred silence, it that word silence all of a sudden has a completely different feel to it, right? So whether it's a story like your sacred stories, if it's a just somebody's telling a story, it can be fun, but like, and that's great. It's not like sacred even means better. It's just a different vibration. So bringing in the word sacred story, I think just invites in something else that's a little intangible or unexplainable.
Oh, I love that. You brought tears to my eyes. I'm not sure why, but it's just
Mhm.
dropping into the essence of that word, and everything that you said really resonates. And so thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank
so the
you.
podcast is about sharing inspiring sacred stories. So I would love to hear, what is that sacred story that's on your heart today that you would like to share?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, as you know. And I feel like I have a few sacred stories up my sleeves. I think like any person who's in the healing profession, we've had a lot of experiences in our lives that we've chose to make meaning, and Um, I was sitting with it and I was praying with it of like what story wants to come through. And even I woke up in the middle of the night and it was like another story came through. I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about that one. And then it was like on my walk right before the podcast, it was like,
Oh,
no, this is the story. So again, I think when I try and touch into what wants to be shared through me, right? And when we learn from kind of the indigenous ritual space holders, like a lot of times how I've trained, um, is to get out of the mind, get out of the preconceived, and be open to the moment. What wants to be shared with you in that moment? And it might even be different than what you thought even an hour ago, right? So
right.
that I think spirit is just in this moment. And so I think the continued process, which is a little scary because it's also uncertain, right? We want certainty. We want to know, okay, what am I gonna, this very linear process. But I think when you get into Kairos time or divine time, you have to be willing to let go of the certainty and let whatever wants to arise in its own timing.
This
So
is
with that,
very wise.
oh, thanks. With that, I will say, I think a summary story of that kind of theme is giving birth to my daughter, Lucy.
Oh, Lucy, that little magic bean.
She loves you. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
And you helped bring her in, doing acupuncture while I was trying to get pregnant and before birth and all of that. And yeah, so. That story was coming up. I just ran into a mama who is a week past her due date, and she was talking about her birth experience. And it was really interesting because, she's, I think she's 42 and she wants to do a home birth and she's waiting for her baby to come. She's feeling that natural impatience, right? Of like, oh my gosh, when's it coming? And so it connected me to my birth and how different that experience was for me because I gave birth to Lucy at Mission Hospital. And, it's interesting to sit with birth because I feel like birth is just a symbol for everyone's journey in life, right? We all have these moments, we all have decisions to make. And if we make those decisions from the place of ego or what we think needs to happen in order for us to feel like a good person or in order us to feel like we're doing the right thing, I think that takes us completely out of the experience that spirit wants us to have, right? And that um the more we can surrender and pray that it becomes clear what is our experience, right? Like I didn't think I was going to give birth in a hospital until I was pregnant with Lucy. And then I found out that the birth center doesn't take IVF pregnancies.
mm,
And so as an acupuncturist, even doing IVF, but again, that was a whole nother thing of how we chose to get pregnant, being a same-sex couple and all of that. So it's not like I thought, oh, I definitely want to do IVF, but that was the experience that opened, right? And became clear that that was the flow. And so same with the birthing experience, it was like, okay, it is clear that the home birth is, or the home birth or the birth center isn't going to be the path for us, right? And maybe I could have pushed back, I don't know, but it didn't feel like the right thing to do. Um, I don't know how much I'll share about the actual birth story, but I think when I look back on giving birth to Lucy in the hospital, it was 100% the right thing for me and Lucy's experience, right? Like for many reasons, she ended up having jaundice, so we had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. If we would have been at the birth center, I would have had to check into um, the maternal part of the hospital where you don't have, like, it's basically like you don't get the same kind of care as if you had just given birth.
mm,
And so it's not as much of a restful experience. And because we already given birth and we didn't have to leave the maternal ward basically for 5 days, it was like very much we got to just sit with sit together in that. And Maggie would have had to been like sleeping in a chair as opposed to like my partner, as opposed to having like a couch that she could sleep on, and meals and all of those things that we got provided. So that's just one tiny aspect of it. But another one is this was another big one of dogma and kind of like, again, coming back to my centers, I chose at 8 centimeters to have an epidural.
Mm.
And I was very, very convinced that my birth was going to be so easy because I heard, oh, my mom, she couldn't barely make it to the hospital before I came out. Or like my grandma like had 3 kids and she was like, it was like half hour and they're all bored. So I was overconfident, right? And I think that's something too I watch out for is like overconfidence now, right? Um, because again, we all have our own stories, no matter what our parents or grandparents have experienced. Like it's our story, right? And our body.
Right.
And um, I was getting to the point where it was starting to become like a traumatic birth. And
Mm.
my doula pulled me aside and she said, look, I know you had told me you were open to having like an epidural, basically. I think that now is something to consider because I see this becoming a trauma experience as
Mm.
opposed to a birth experience. And that like clicked something that gave me some permission because I had a lot of voices, that I had heard, family, friends, like the medicine that I practice in that, has judgment around um, receiving epidural care. And as if it's like a weaker thing or it's bad for the baby or, all that stuff, right? And if I would not have listened to my gut and like had somebody else who gave me a different perspective and just been like reminded me of my truth, I don't think I would have been able to have a vaginal birth because after that epidural, Lucy was stuck and I had to end up pushing for like 8 more hours. And there's no way I could have done that. Like no way. Um, and so again, like just this idea of like, you know, I think it comes up in anything, whether it's the sacred that we've ascribed things to, um, or medicine, or like whatever, beliefs basically we follow. There's this idea of like good and bad and right and wrong. And like one of my biggest, deepest truths that like I hope to impart in this world is like the holding the paradox that
Yeah.
like we don't know what's right and wrong. And what you might think is wrong for one person might be actually exactly what they need. And that higher power is the only one who knows what the plan is supposed to be, right?
Yes.
So the more you can go back into your own truth and let go of seeking approval from others, I think
Mm.
that's a big one. Let go of guilt, of shame,
Mm.
whatever journey you are on in life. It doesn't have to be a birth journey. It's like just waking up today, you're going to experience layers of that, shades of
Mm.
it, right?
Mhm. Yes. Oh, mic drop. Oh, I love birth stories. Every birth story is sacred, no matter how C-section, home birth, birthing center. So I think, this story that you came through that you wanted to share, because I know that you have many, and I'm sure that we'll be on here again and you can share another one. Um, it's like that story of surrender in the moment, in the flow, and trusting that inner wisdom as it comes instead of attaching and clinging to how we think it should be. Kama, when she owned homegrown babies, the best lesson I got out of her birthing class was neutralizing your biggest fears and being okay at point zero with any way that the birth goes. And
Mm,
so, and you did that. And, now your work with fertility or pregnancy or mental health, or, it's like now you have that embodied story to hold and that wisdom carry. You're such a wisdom carrier. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. And I know that you really work in an intuitive way and like to pull cards. And I had no idea what you were going to share, but it's funny because I have this tarot card, Death and Rebirth,
Wow.
sitting on my desk. And I know it's sometimes we do get into conversations about death, but today what wanted to come through for you is the birth, the rebirth, the new life, and
Mhm.
giving women that empowered choice that, hey, yeah, we're holistic, we're natural, but if you end up needing an epidural, you did not fail. It is okay. You still had a sacred birth. You still have that life in your hands, and it's at the end of the day what's most important, and it's that healthy baby in your arms, right?
Mhm. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I think that's what gets missed a lot. You're so right with whether it's fertility work or whether it's birth work is like, what do you want? A healthy baby, right? Healthy baby, healthy mama. However that is supposed to happen, spirit knows, right?
Yeah.
And there are times, like obviously we know thinking of the death part of birth and all of that when that doesn't happen, and it still doesn't mean that that person did anything wrong, right?
Yeah.
This is just part of the mystery of life that we have to embrace and sit with and continue to surrender into not knowing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jennifer. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, my website, jenniferwelder.com would be the best way. And I'd be happy to, yeah, talk with anyone who wants to talk further, or work with anyone, whether it's through coaching or acupuncture. I'm always honored to hold people's deeper journeys and support to wherever, um, they want to feel more peace and calm and connection with themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the Dr. Crystal podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. Until next time, stay inspired and find all those sacred nuggets throughout your everyday life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Dr. Crystal's podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. If today's episode lifted you up, I'd love if you shared it with a friend, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps more people discover these stories of light and transformation. And if you'd like to work with me more closely, head over to www.drcrystalkinnanen.com. And as a thank you for listening to the show, you'll receive $20 off your first session. Details are also in the show notes. Remember, in this time of rapid change and transformation, you are not alone. You are part of a greater shift, and your inspired life matters. Until next time, let's be inspired.